So if you're like a lot of Legacy and Outback owners and you've got an issue where your airbag light is on when the car's on, or your horn doesn't work, this one, it does work, so I'm not going to hit it. Chances are you've got an issue with your roll connector. Let me just shut that thing up. Now the roll connector is something that's hidden under the horn button here, and it basically sends all of the wires from your steering wheel controls, your horn, whatever, through the center console there and into the car. These tend to break sometimes just with age or exposure or whatever. So we're going to go ahead and replace that because I need to get to working on my steering wheel controls. This is what the roll connector looks like. Part number for the roll connector is right there for 2005 models. It's probably something similar for other models. Not really too sure how they vary with the years, but mine is a 2005, and so that's what I'm using. First thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and knock the negative terminal off to prevent any possibility of the airbag discharging or any other issues that can happen when you're working with electricals. So you're going to grab a T30 Torx head screwdriver and get in right here and undo this bolt and the one on the other side. With those two screws undone, now we can remove the horn pad, and that shows us some connections. Those are the airbag connections on the back there. We're going to need to undo those and then pull the horn pad off. With the horn pad removed, you can see the connections from the steering wheel controls here. We're going to go ahead and disconnect those, and this one here, which is the airbag. And then I believe this is a 17mm socket there, and it's on pretty tightly, so you're going to want to get an extension and a breaker bar or something to give yourself a little bit more force. One thing you might also want to do here is take a permanent marker or something and mark the position of the steering wheel relative to this nut. So you're going to want to make a line kind of along like that so that you can reposition the steering wheel properly when you're done here. So when we're removing the steering wheel now, the steering wheel is actually stuck onto the roll connector. You're going to want to make sure you pull the steering wheel and push on the roll connector at the same time to kind of pop and break that connection. Otherwise, what's going to happen is the front of that roll connector is going to come off. Then you're going to have a ton of guts in your lap, which happened to me one time when I was doing this. So be careful if you're taking your steering wheel off, especially if you're only doing this to do a steering wheel swap. And there we go, it came off. These are the little points that I'm talking about that stick into these slots on the steering wheel, and that's where it can get caught up. Now you've got a roll connector staring you in the face. It's all covered up by the steering column cover there. So first screw that we need to remove to get that off is a Phillips head that's down here. I take that off and then we can pull the bottom off. So I just took that screw out. I'm gonna go ahead and try and pop this thing off. So we want to lower that adjuster there so that there's some space. There we go. It pops right off. Next, we've got 3 screws that are holding this top piece on. One is located back in here. There's one in the middle and one on the side. Once I take this top cover off, I'll show you the location of those. So now that we've undone this screw here and that screw there, we can just go ahead, pop that up and let it sit. And now we're just undoing these 4 screws that hold the actual roll connector in. So with those screws taken out, the roll connector is really only held in by the connections that it's made in these clips here. So once those are undone, you can see that it feeds itself into the cover here. So we're going to need to get in there. So it's super easy to take this bottom panel off. First, we're just going to pop this side panel off. And put that somewhere else. As you can see, I'm kind of in the middle of swapping my pedals over there. I'm going to release a video on that soon as to how to swap the Spec B pedals. But we're looking for 3 push pins on the bottom side here. So one here, second one here, and the third one there. And then this bottom panel will fall right off. I've gotten that bottom panel off. You can see it's hanging there. It'll be connected to the OBD connector, so I'm just going to leave that hanging where it is. But we're going to move on to this top one, and this is really just connected in by some clip panels, and there's a Phillips head screw in the corner here, so don't pull on that corner, but just go around pulling the panel off, and then when you get to there, look for the Phillips head screw. All right, with that panel removed, you've got this metal panel here. I think these are 10mm bolts, but you take those 2 off and that'll come right off. Now that you've got that metal bar off, we've got these connections exposed here. What you've got is the airbag connector that we're going to go ahead and disconnect. Just like that. And then the actual roll connector wiring here itself. So this white one is going to take a bit more effort, but we're going to disconnect that, and then we'll be able to remove the whole thing from the steering column. So once you've gotten those 2 connections disconnected, you're just going to want to feed the roll connector through the steering column and take it out. I'll go swap that on my bench and come back and put the new one in. So you see the 2 roll connectors here. I've just marked this as the bad one with some tape. Now these need to be indexed. When they say indexed, they mean essentially you want to set this so that when you turn the wheel all the way to lock, it doesn't snap the wires in there because you've turned it too far. So what you need to do, if you read the instructions on there, it'll tell you, but I'll just go through it here quickly. I've already centered this one, but what you're going to want to do is turn it all the way to the right. From center, that's going to be 1, 2, 3, and a quarter turn. And you'll feel a little bit of resistance here. You don't want to push on that resistance. With the roll connector vertical like this, you're going to want to go a quarter turn. 1, 2, 3. And that's going to find the center that I had just found previously. And this is the way you're going to want to install this. So what you want to do from there is you want to take some tape, like I've done on that one, and just tape this so that it can't move. And when you put it back on, what that's going to ensure is that the way you put that on, if you turn the wheel all the way to the right or to the left, you're not snapping the wires in there, you're not destroying this roll connector in the process of installing it. So now that we've properly indexed the roll connector and we've got it taped up, we're going to throw it on there, screw it in with those 4 screws that we had previously, and then we can run the wires through here and over to the connector, connect the airbag in the white, and then it's just a matter of throwing everything back together. So I'm going to continue because I'm actually doing the steering wheel control video at the same time, but that should be it for your roll connector. Once you've thrown everything back together, you're just going to want to connect the battery, test everything out, and you should be good to go.